Okay, segment 2. The CPD not making real progress on transitioning from what we call the gang affiliation data system, data management they have. You'll hear others, activists and community groups talk about their gang database. It is not a separate database, ladies and gentlemen. It is part of a database called Clear, which CPD had Oracle build years and years ago and spent a lot of millions on it. It's fields within that database. So, that being said, the deputy public safety inspector general's office that I helped create a couple years ago did a report on the database. A great article from Dumke from ProPublica came out and basically detailed he got a dump of a lot of the data, and it showed just how horrifically biased, ridiculously bad. They had people in the database that were like 115 years old. People still in gangs at 70 or 80, just ridiculously bad. There was no transparency around it. There was no way to appeal. There was no way to know if you were in there. There were no regulations for why. There was no consistency about how or why someone would get into the database, because that's not something the police department believes in. It's so poorly managed. There was no way anything like that was ever going to be run well. So McDumke from ProPublica does a story. It prompts a Deputy Public Safety Inspector General investigation and report audit. They issue a report in 19, I think in April of 19, if I'm not mistaken. The police department, they come up with recommendations. The police department under Eddie Johnson agrees to many of them, disagrees with a couple, and outright says no to one, I think. If you look in previous episodes, we've had Deborah Witzberg, who's the Deputy Public Safety Inspector General, on the show a few times already in the year we've been doing this. And one of those times was to talk about this audit that they did. So this is a new look. Hey, it's been 2 years since we gave you this recommendation, and you said you were going to do things. What did you do? Right? And this is a copy of that report. A follow-up inquiry on the CPD department, the Chicago Police Department's gang database. Now, it's in quotes. It isn't a database. That's the colloquial. I refuse to do that because I don't like to mislead people. What did they find? Well, they found that the CPD immediately started a community engagement process that wasn't horrible. They also started drafting revisions and a plan to change how they capture and regulate and who can put this data in. COVID hit, and you're not going to be surprised. None of us will. That was the end of their community engagement. Obviously, shortly thereafter, you're seeing issues with George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. So that all makes sense. Here's the real big thing that sticks out in this updated and that look at what they've been doing. They issued a draft general order. They asked for public comment. They took public comment. They made changes. They still haven't implemented that new draft. 2 years later. Two. And to make things worse, they haven't even designated someone to lead this effort. There's no one within the department whose job it is to solely go after making this change and seeing it through. Nobody. And, David Brown's excuse, the current superintendent's excuse, obviously he wasn't there the whole time. We're approaching or just past his 1 year anniversary. He's saying, well, COVID, and you don't understand. Listen, I understand COVID and the George Floyd and the protests and the unrest were issues. But you had plenty of time to designate someone. Someone should have been designated before Brown got in. And Brown, so there was Eddie Johnson, then Superintendent Charlie Beck from LA was here for a short period of time. He didn't designate someone. David Brown came in. He hasn't still designated someone. They don't want to make this change. They're going to drag it out as long as humanly possible. And That's just a stain on the department. But it's how it operates. It's not going to change itself. This is just another nail in that coffin that has 1,000 nails in it already. They will not change themselves. This is somewhere where, if you've been viewing this show previously, you will see that I am totally for the City Council and the Cook County Board and the General Assembly passing laws, legislation, mandating and restraining police use of force and policy changes. This is one that is going to have to happen. The City Council needs to step up and pass an ordinance mandating this change, and mandating guidelines be produced, and mandating a public policy for them to be reviewed every year, and an audit every year of the current data systems and what's in there, who can access them. Because the police department isn't going to do it themselves. That is clear as day. I knew it well before this. This is just another nail in that coffin.